The Spanish island of Mallorca is a popular European vacation spot, but its success is also starting to cause problems with many of the island's residents. Because of a spiraling cost of living crisis, some locals want to see fewer visitors. About 10,000 of them gathered over the weekend to protest mass tourism. DW correspondent Jan-Philipp Scholz was there.
Mallorca is not for sale. This is the message of thousands of protesters who took to the streets of the Spanish island over the weekend. An average apartment in Mallorca now costs 1,500 euros per month, unaffordable for most islanders, and many blame mass tourism.
It's enough. Everything is about tourism. At the same time, our lives get precarious and we can't find a place to live.
Many here earn 1,300 to 1,400 euros per month. They still share an apartment at the age of 40.
The number of tourists in Mallorca has been increasing steadily, and more holidaymakers want to rent their own apartment. At the same time, local homeowners and investors are trying to benefit from the trend. The consequences can be seen just a few meters below the party streets of the holiday island. More than 30 people live in this rundown basement. Many work in the tourism industry, but their salaries are too small to afford a normal apartment.
We are all in dire straits here. Of course, we know that this place is not made for human beings.
The residents show us their inhumane living conditions. Widespread mould, cockroaches, and the smell of feces everywhere. Christopher Nathaniel pays 600 euros per month for this small, windowless room. The student, who has a part-time job as a waiter, tells us that the authorities have known about the problem for years, but they do little about it. Even small children continue to live here.
This constant humidity makes us sick, especially the elderly and the very young ones. For tenants my age, it's less dramatic, but for the small children, this environment is horrible.
The housing crisis is increasingly affecting people from many different backgrounds. Some have even decided to move to campervans on the outskirts of Palma. Alvaro Ortega has been working as a technician for more than 20 years. His income is okay, he says, but still, after the last rent increase, he and his dog had to move into a van.
My life changed from one day to the next. I used to have an apartment with 3 rooms and 2 bathrooms. Now I live in 12 square meters. Of course, everything is completely different now, but you can get used to this lifestyle.
Local journalist Gemma Marchena has been writing about the problem for years. She says it's mainly due to failed policies.
There are property owners that make huge profits from this. I think we should focus more on them. They cannot enrich themselves from the suffering of the others.
Perhaps, the journalist says, those responsible are now slowly waking up. They know too many protests on the holiday islands are not good for business.
And for more, we can now talk to Júlia Isern. She's a spokesperson for the Sustainable Tourism Platform in Mallorca, a collection of groups concerned about over-tourism on the island. Júlia, good to have you on the show. Tell me, has Mallorca become a two-class society, one for locals and one for tourists?
Hello, good evening. Thanks for inviting us. Yes, indeed, that has been the problem so far. We are building a society basically made for the tourist industry. So we are prioritizing their needs, and we are building new buildings for these people. And we are not prioritizing the needs of the local communities. So yes, indeed, it's a very good sentence to summarize the problem that we have two societies. That this is what we saw this last weekend in the massive protest that we had with more than 15,000 people protesting in the streets.
Why haven't authorities done anything to change this status quo, to address this problem? Because this has been a long time coming, hasn't it?
Yes, exactly. And this is a great question that we all put ourselves. Basically, we believe that local governments, they don't think that this is such a big problem because they are prioritizing the economic needs of an industry that is not taking into account the needs of the local community, of the workers, of the infrastructures. And I think that in order to reply to these questions properly, we need to put into context the reality of the island. Mallorca is a very limited territory with very limited resources. So if we have less water, we have less resources, and then we are physically apart from the continent, which makes even more vulnerable this situation. In a territory of 1 million people, we received last year 18 million tourists, making us one of the most pressured regions in all Spain. So yes, that's a good question why they don't actually work in that to improve the lives.
So another reality is that Mallorca's economy is largely built around tourism, though. So tell me, is this really about turning away visitors or about rethinking the current tourism model on the island?
Yes, the question at this moment is, can we afford to continue on this situation? Can we afford receiving 18 million tourists per year when we have limited infrastructure, limited roads? For example, if we put the example of the transport, we don't have enough public buses. And I can believe that a lot of the people listening here already noticed that when they go to Mallorca, that we don't have buses for everyone. Then we need to rent cars, and then the roads get completely blocked. And people that are commuting for home to work, they are stuck in the roads every day. But we can talk about more problems that the tourist industry is bringing, such as the housing that was mentioned earlier, or the increase on rape cases that we're receiving year after year. So really the question is, can we afford to continue like that? And just a short number, actually, in these last 10 years, 20 years, we've been increasing the amount of tourists that we receive. Yeah. But if we look into the ranking, into the European ranking per the capita income, we have the Balearic Islands have lost 100 positions. So
Julia,
how is it possible?
I hate to interrupt you. We're almost at the end of our show, but I do want to get maybe a 20-second answer, if I can. What could a sustainable model look like for the island then?
So it would be putting a limit into the amount of tourists that we receive, but also to make us tourists be responsible of the actions that we're doing. So means maybe not, being more responsible to our land, being more comprehensive, that we have a culture that we are visiting a people. We are not using the beaches.
We'll have to leave it there, Julia. Thank you so much.